115 people did not just move away. They vanished into the humid North Carolina air without leaving a single drop of blood or a broken window behind. When John White finally stepped back onto Roanoke Island in 1590, he expected to hear the laughter of his granddaughter, but instead, he found a ghost town guarded by a single cryptic word. Imagine arriving at a colony expecting to reunite with your family, only to find every single person gone, as if they had been erased from existence. No bodies were ever recovered, no signs of a desperate battle were found, and not a single grave marked the site of a tragedy. More than 400 years later, this remains the ultimate cold case that continues to baffle historians, archaeologists, and forensic experts alike. The stakes were higher than just a few lost lives. The success of the English Empire in the New World hung entirely on these missing souls. What really happened to the lost colony of Roanoke? And why did they leave behind a clue that poses more questions than it answers? To solve this, we have to look past the legends and dive into the brutal, terrifying reality of the 16th century American wilderness. In the late 1500s, England was a rising power desperate to keep pace with the massive gold-filled empire of Spain. Queen Elizabeth I gave Sir Walter Raleigh a daring mission: establish a permanent base in North America to harass Spanish treasure ships. But the New World was not the paradise the English explorers had described in their glowing, exaggerated reports. The first attempt at Roanoke in 1585 was a disaster fueled by military aggression and a complete lack of survival skills. Instead of farming, the first colonists spent their time searching for gold and picking fights with the local Secatan tribe. Starvation set in quickly, and the atmosphere became so toxic that the colonists eventually fled back to England on a passing ship. Most people would have seen this as a warning from God to stay away from the treacherous Carolina coast. But the dream of an English empire was too profitable to ignore, and a second group of settlers was already being recruited. This time, things were supposed to be different because the 1587 expedition wasn't just made up of soldiers and gold hunters. Raleigh recruited entire families, including women and children, who were promised hundreds of acres of their own land. Leading them was John White, a talented artist who had been to Roanoke before and genuinely wanted to build a peaceful community. Among the settlers was his own daughter, Eleanor Dare, who was heavily pregnant when they boarded the ships. They arrived at Roanoke Island in July, but the arrival was immediately haunted by the ghosts of the previous failure. They found the remains of one soldier from the previous group, but he wasn't standing guard. His bones were scattered across the sand. Despite the eerie start, a moment of historic hope occurred just weeks after their arrival on the island. Eleanor Dare gave birth to Virginia Dare, the very first English child born in the Americas. She represented the future of the colony, a sign that the English could truly take root in this wild, unfamiliar land. But the celebration was short-lived as the settlers realized their food supplies were dangerously low and the local tribes were hostile. The colonists realized they wouldn't survive the winter without more tools, seeds, and livestock from the mainland. They begged John White to return to England immediately to secure reinforcements and life-saving supplies for the group. White was terrified to leave his family behind in such a vulnerable position, but he knew it was their only chance. He sailed away in August 1587, promising to return within months, never imagining he was seeing them for the last time. Just as White reached the English coast, the world exploded into a massive geopolitical conflict. The Spanish Armada was launching an all-out invasion of England, and Queen Elizabeth seized every single ship for the war effort. For 3 agonizing years, John White was trapped in England while his family was thousands of miles away in a wilderness. He tried to hire small ships to sneak across, but pirates and the ongoing naval war forced him to turn back every time. Imagine the mental toll on a man who knew his granddaughter was growing up, or perhaps dying, in total isolation. By the time the war ended and he finally secured passage back to Roanoke, 3 years had vanished into history. In August 1590, on Virginia Dare's 3rd birthday, John White finally stepped back onto the soil of Roanoke Island. He blew a trumpet and sang English songs into the woods, expecting his friends and family to come running out to greet him. But the only sound that answered him was the wind whistling through the trees and the crashing of the Atlantic surf. The settlement was a hollow shell, with the houses taken down and the heavy trunks and chests of the settlers buried and looted. The word Croatoan was carved into a prominent post, and the letters C-R-O were found etched into a nearby tree. White had told them to carve a Maltese cross if they were leaving in distress or under attack, but there was no cross. This suggested an orderly relocation rather than a massacre, but a sudden, violent hurricane prevented White from reaching the nearby Croatoan Island. The storm nearly wrecked his ships, forcing him to abandon the search and return to England, a broken man who would die without ever knowing the truth. The most logical theory is that the colonists, starving and desperate, finally gave up on White's return and moved. They likely traveled 50 miles south to Hatteras Island, then known as Croatoan, to live with the friendly tribe there. Decades later, settlers in the region reported seeing Native Americans with European features and light-colored eyes who claimed to have white ancestors. Some oral traditions from the Lumbee tribe suggest they are the direct descendants of the lost Roanoke settlers. However, recent evidence suggests the colony might have split into two groups to increase their chances of survival. In 2012, researchers discovered a hidden symbol on a map drawn by John White, pointing to a location 50 miles inland. Excavations at this Site X have uncovered pieces of English pottery that were never traded, suggesting colonists actually lived there. But if they moved inland, did they thrive? Or did they meet a much more violent end at the hands of hostile interior tribes? Some historians point to a darker possibility: a coordinated attack by the powerful Powhatan Confederacy. Years later, Captain John Smith of the Jamestown colony was told that a group of white people living nearby had been slaughtered. According to this theory, the Powhatan leader ordered their deaths to prevent English expansion into his territory. This would explain why the settlers were never found by later expeditions. There was simply no one left to find. Then there are the Dare Stones, a series of inscribed rocks discovered in the 1930s that supposedly tell a story of misery and death. Most are confirmed fakes, but the first stone, which describes the death of Virginia Dare's father, is still debated by some experts today. Today, the mystery is being fought with science rather than just shovels and old maps. DNA projects are currently scanning the genetic codes of local families to find a definitive link to the 1587 colonists. Every year, new artifacts emerge from the shifting sands of the Outer Banks, teasing us with fragments of the truth. A 16th century gold ring, a snap-haunce gun lock, and even English tobacco pipes have been pulled from the earth. But despite all our technology, we still cannot say for certain where Eleanor Dare or Little Virginia spent their final days. The Lost Colony isn't just a name. It is a reminder of how easily the wilderness can swallow the traces of human ambition. 430 years have passed, and the silence of Roanoke remains as heavy as it was the day John White returned. Did they find a new life among the indigenous people, becoming part of the very fabric of America before it was even a nation? Or did they perish in the cold, wondering why the ships from home never appeared on the horizon? The word Croatoan is the only voice they have left, a single clue that has survived the wind, the rain, and the centuries. What do you think was the fate of Virginia Dare and the others? Integration or a much darker end? Let us know your theories in the comments below. And if you want to uncover more of history's greatest secrets, make sure to subscribe.